back to my channel. So the holiday season is obviously coming up with Christmas and New Year's. So today I thought we would do a pretty easy holiday dress so you guys can wear to your fancy occasions. And with this, I'm actually working with an all black color palette, which I don't even know if I've ever done that on my channel because I don't usually wear black. But I'm really excited about this design. It's still gonna be really cute because I bought this really fun polka dot fabric and we're going to be using this to make sleeves. And I'm really excited about it. And this is just a polka dot mesh fabric. I don't remember where I got this one, but I know you can get this stuff at Joann's. And it looks like I have 1 yard. And then the rest of the fabric is a black knit fabric, and I got this one at Joann's. You want it to be thick enough where it's not see-through, but thin enough so it still has a really nice drape to it. And it also has to be pretty stretchy because we're not going to be adding a zipper in the back. And I have 1.5 yards of this fabric. And so the design of this dress is going to be another one I haven't really done on my channel because it's not going to have a waist seam at all. The bodice down to the skirts is going to be one piece, so we're going to have to do a bunch of panels all the way around. And I will try to get up a pattern as soon as I can for you guys, but I'm sorry they've been taking me a little bit of time lately. So let's start cutting it out. So like I mentioned, it's really important that you're using a stretchy fabric for this project, and my fabric was a 4-way stretch, which means that it stretches in all directions. But if you're using a 2-way stretch, which means it only stretches one way, you want to make sure that it stretches horizontally when you cut out your pieces so you can get it over your head. And then I cut out all of my pieces, and so this is the centerpiece. And like I mentioned, when we were going to sew this is the entire front panel because we're not adding a waist seam. And then so you guys can see these other pieces I was cutting out, I'm laying out some mesh fabric on top of the pattern pieces so you can still kind of see them, but the little black piece on top is the part that I'm trying to show you guys because we're basically going to be tracing around the neckline of the dress and then measuring 3 inches away from the top edge and cutting out this little section. The next piece here is the front side piece, and you're going to cut 2 of these. And again, I'm doing the same little demonstration because we're going to be cutting out, again, the same little top piece. And then the next one is the back center piece, and it's kind of similar to the front center piece, but we're going to have a different neckline. And here's the little top piece for that one. And then this is the back side piece. And again, we're just cutting 2 of these plus the little top piece. And then the very last pieces on the dress are the sleeve pieces. And we want these sleeves nice and big to get the cute little effect we're going for. And when you cut out sleeves, they're going to be pretty much symmetrical, so I usually cut them on the fold. The only difference is on the back side of it, it's going to be slightly bigger than the front. So you should have this kind of separate curve here, and then they should meet back up at the top. And that's all the pattern pieces. So like I mentioned, the actual assembly for this dress should not be very hard. So the first pieces I'm going to work on are the front pieces. So I'm going to take our center piece, and I'm going to sew one side piece to it down either side. And the most important part when we're pinning these together is we want to match up the waist seam because it has to be consistent all the way around, otherwise the dress is going to be a little bit wonky. So I'm going to go ahead and pin those first, and then the rest should kind of flow together. And then we're going to sew it down either edge here. And usually when I'm working with knits, I will, instead of using a straight stitch, use a zigzag stitch to give it more stretch. But because I'm not worried about our dress stretching like up to down, I'm going to go ahead and use a straight stitch because that shouldn't affect the stretch side to side. Then once the front pieces are sewn, it's pretty much going to be the exact same process working with the back pieces and sewing one back side piece to it down either side seam. Now that both the back and front pieces are sewn, the next step is going to be sewing these 2 pieces together down their sides. So I'm just going to place them pretty side to pretty side, and again do pretty much the same exact thing. And now that those are all sewn, we can try it on the dress, and this is the basic base of it. Basic base. And this is pretty much the entire base of the dress, and this would be the point in the project to make adjustments if you need to on the dress. For me, the overall fit was pretty well right off the bat. I just took mine in quite a bit on these side seams to tighten it up a little bit, and also in the back. and now it comfortably fits my waist and my chest, but it still has enough stretch to get it on and off. And look how cute it's looking! Next up, I'm going to work on the sleeves, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold these in half and sew them across this edge here. And now I'm going to bring our dress back in, and I'm going to attach our sleeves to this curve of the dress. So I'm going to take this seam we just sewed on the sleeve and match that up with the side seam of the dress, and then I'm going to continue pinning the sides around this curve. But when we sew this, instead of going all the way up to the top of this seam here, we actually want to stop about 1/2 inch away from the top edge of the dress on both sides. And now we need to ruffle up the top edge of the sleeve. And to do this, I was going to try a few different techniques, but I actually really like how the first one came out because the seam to ruffle it is like nearly invisible and it just makes a really pretty gather. So for this technique, the key is this elastic thread, and it's super stretchy and thin, and you can buy it in packs like this at Joann's. And to get it around a bobbin, it's best to wind it by hand so that the machine doesn't stretch it out while we're doing this. And then we're going to put it into the bobbin on our machine. And to do this, I usually stretch mine as I'm putting it in like this, and then release it so the tension goes back to normal. And then when you pull it up to the top of your machine, this is the part where you have to pay attention, because if it doesn't go in correctly, it's not going to stretch. And so if your machine is like mine, it'll go through the left side over here, and that's how I know it's done this properly. Otherwise, it wouldn't be locked to the side and it would just be going through the center. And then the last little step before we start sewing is actually on the sleeves, because where the seam ends on the top of the sleeve, you can see that the fabric kind of folds over, and because this fabric doesn't fray, it doesn't need to be hemmed. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim it down where it connects with the seam so it doesn't fold down anymore. And I'm going to sew all the way around the top edge of the sleeve, starting a little bit in from where we stopped stitching it to the dress. And I'm going to start it at about 1/2 inch away from the edge and grow it to about 1 inch away from the edge so we get a little bit of that cute ruffle detailing. And then I'm going to go back at 1/2 inch at the bottom. And when I do this, I'm also going to kind of push more fabric underneath my presser foot so that it gathers it up even more, because otherwise it's not going to gather enough and the sleeve is going to be too wide. It's so cute! And we're pretty much going to do the exact same process around the bottom edge of the sleeve to also gather it up. But this time I want the ruffle to be 3 inches away from the bottom edge of the sleeve, so I marked out with some pins where I want to sew, and I'm going to do my best to keep it even all the way around. Well, we are actually almost done with this dress. The only things that we still have to do are we have to finish up the neckline, and we also have to finish up the bottom. So to finish up the neckline, I'm going to take all these little top pieces that we cut out, and basically I'm going to sew them together the same way that we sewed all of these pieces together in the same order. And if you made any adjustments to the dress, you're going to want to make those same adjustments to these pieces. And so I'm going to take our front pieces and sew one side piece to it down either side. And then we're going to do the same thing with the back pieces. And then I'm going to take these two pieces and put them together. And now I'm going to sew all of these seams. And now that we have this piece all sewn, I'm going to take our dress and I'm going to lay this around the top edge pretty side down on top of it, and I'm going to match up and pin these pieces together around all of their seams. But when we get to the part with our sleeves, we're going to push our sleeves down so we don't sew over them, and then because we didn't sew the seam all the way up to the top, we can just pin these pieces together and pivot and go around the armhole to also give that a finished edge. And then once this is all pinned, I'm going to sew around all of these edges. But this time I am going to change my machine to do a little zigzag stitch so that this part has some stretch to it. And then once we're done sewing, this will give us a finished edge across the top. I'm just going to do one more little step though to make it lay nice and flat. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to turn it again to the wrong sides, and we're going to fold out the section that we just sewed, And we're going to push our raw edges towards the little lining piece. And I'm going to top stitch this down all of the edges I can reach, but it's okay if you can't, like around the armholes or some of the curves. And then I'm just going to trim down all of my seams. And to keep the little lining flap in place in case it kind of wants to move a little bit, you can also do just a few little stitches down the seams to kind of hold it in place. And now our top edges are fully done. And the last thing to do is to finally add a hem all along the bottom edge of the dress. And so first you're going to want to try it on and make sure you're happy with the length, and then you can just go ahead and fold over the edge and add a straight stitch all the way across. And here is the finished dress. I'm so happy with how this dress turned out. It's super simple and elegant and really easy to make, but it's still like really fun and really cute. Especially with these sleeves, I am just obsessed with how they turned out, especially at the neckline. And I think there's such a fun way to add a little bit more detail to the classic little black dress. And I still haven't decided if I'm going to wear this dress for Christmas or New Year's, but I'm just so in love with it. And it's super versatile, and you know, you can totally dress it up with some more heels, but I was also wearing it with sneakers while I was walking to model it, and I also felt very cute in it. And like I mentioned, this dress is really easy, so I hope you guys give it a try. And again, I will try to get the pattern up as soon as I can. And I love you guys, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. And stay tuned, because next week I'm going to be making a really fun dress, if I can get it done in time. So I hope to see you guys there. Bye!